You don't have to accept the world as it is. You can make it into the world as it should be and could be. You can create a new normal, one that is fairer and gives everybody opportunity and treats everyone equally and builds bridges between people instead of dividing them. We can emerge from our current circumstances stronger than before, better than before. But as has always been true at key moments in history, it's going to depend on people like you to go out there and rewrite what is possible. It's also pulled the curtain back on another hard truth, something that we all have to eventually accept once our childhood comes to an end. You know, all those adults that you used to think were in charge and knew what they were doing, turns out they don't have all the answers. A lot of them aren't even asking the right questions. So if the world's going to get better, it's going to be up to you. That realization may be kind of intimidating, but I hope it's also inspiring. You make me optimistic about our future. So as you prepare for the next stage of what I know will be a remarkable journey, I'll leave you with a few quick pieces of advice for what they're worth. First, do what you think is right, not just what's convenient or what's expected or what's easy. While you have this time, think about the values that matter to you the most. Too many graduates who feel the pressure to immediately start running that race for success skip the step of asking themselves what's really important. And too often they end up as adults who only do what's good for them and say to heck with everybody else, and they end up not having a lot of meaningful relationships or not really feeling as if they made a serious contribution to the world. I hope that instead you decide to moor yourself in values that last, like responsibility, fairness, generosity, and respect for others. That will make you part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Second, listen to each other, respect each other, and use all that critical thinking you've developed from your education to help promote the truth. You are the internet generation and the social media generation. Now, as was true for generations before you, graduation marks your final passage into adulthood, the time when you're expected to fully take charge of your life's direction. It's when you get to decide what's important to you, the career you want to pursue, the values you want to live by, who you want to build a family with. That can be intimidating even under normal circumstances. And given the current state of things, let's face it, it can be downright scary. It's fair to say that your generation is graduating into a world that faces more profound challenges than any generation in decades. It can feel like everything's up for grabs right now. But, you know, it will eventually end. The economy will begin to heal and life will start returning to normal. And you'll still have your whole life ahead of you. The thing is, our nations are strongest when we see that we are all God's children, all equal in His eyes and worthy of His love. Across our two great countries, we have Hindus and Muslims, Christians and Sikhs, and Jews and Buddhists. What these past few weeks have also shown us is that the old normal wasn't good enough. It wasn't working that well. In a lot of ways, the pandemic just brought into focus problems that have been growing for a very long time. They remind us that we can't take things for granted. We have to work to make things better. They remind us that our individual well-being depend on the well-being of the community that we live in. And it doesn't matter how much money you make if everyone around you is hungry and sick. It reminds you that our country and our democracy only function when we think not just about ourselves, but also about each other. So, as scary and uncertain as these times may be, they are also a wake-up call. And they're an incredible opportunity for your generation. Because you don't have to accept what was considered normal before. With all the challenges he faces right now, nobody can tell you, no, you're too young to understand, or this is how it's always been done. Because with so much uncertainty, with everything suddenly up for grabs, this is your generation's world to shape. I'll admit that it's a little unfair to lay such a heavy burden on you. I wish that my generation had done more to solve some of our country's big problems, so you didn't have to. But the good news is that I know you're up to the challenge. You are the best educated generation in history, and a whole lot more technologically savvy. You've been exposed to more knowledge and perspectives than my generation ever was. You're more tolerant and empathetic, entrepreneurial, environmentally conscious. Even before graduation, many of you have already started to make your mark, feeding the hungry, mentoring kids, fighting racial injustice, helping veterans, battling climate change. To see so many of you raise up your voices on behalf of justice for all, well, it's been unbelievably inspiring. You make me optimistic about our future. Since I'm one of the old guys, I won't tell you what to do with this power that rests in your hands, but I'll leave you with 3 quick pieces of advice. First, don't be afraid. Second, do what you think is right. Doing what feels good, what's convenient, what's easy, that's how little kids think. Unfortunately, a lot of so-called grown-ups, including some with fancy titles and important jobs, still think that way, which is why things are so screwed up. I hope that instead you decide to ground yourself in values that last, like honesty, hard work, responsibility, fairness, generosity, respect for others. You won't get it right every time. You'll make mistakes, like we all do. But if you listen to the truth that's inside yourself, even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, people will notice. They'll gravitate towards you, and you'll be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. And finally, build a community. No one does big things by themselves. Right now, when people are scared, it's easy to be cynical and say, let me just look out for myself, or my family, or people who look or think or pray like me. But if we're going to get through these difficult times, if we're going to create a world where everybody has opportunity to find a job and afford college, if we're going to save the environment, then we're going to have to do it together. So be alive to one another's struggles. Stand up for one another's rights. Leave behind all the old ways of thinking that divide us. Sexism, racial prejudice, status, greed, and set the world on a different path. You can change that, even if it all seems broken. Have faith in our democracy. In fact, you don't even have to be an activist to make a contribution to our democracy. If you've always dreamed of starting your own business, go build a company that is a model for paying its workers a fair wage. If you've dreamed always of being a doctor, think about working in a community that's short on doctors. There are so many ways to serve. The important thing is to recognize that this nation needs your talents, your passions, your voice to make it better. Trust me, I know. It changed, has always changed, because young people dared to hope. Democracy isn't about relying on some charismatic leader to make changes from on high. It's about finding hope in ourselves and creating it in others, especially in a time like this. You don't always need hope when everything's going fine. It's when things seem darkest. That's when you need it the most. Someone once said, hope is not a lottery ticket. It's a hammer for us to use in a national emergency, to break the glass, sound the alarm, and sprint into action. That's what hope is. It's not the blind faith that things will get better. It's the conviction that with effort and perseverance and courage and a concern for others, things can get better. But the truth is, you don't need us to tell you what to do, because in so many ways, you've already started to lead. Congratulations. Keep making us proud.